He disguised himself as a cook to find out who his wife truly was. What she witnessed was a nightmare. Screams, threats, and humiliation directed at the maid and her daughters. The woman everyone admired was, in reality, a monster at home. Now he has to choose: reveal everything or watch his family be destroyed in silence. Before listening to this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exciting tales. Victor woke up that Tuesday morning with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't exactly fear nor anxiety, but something akin to a premonition he'd been trying to ignore for weeks. Sunlight streamed through the light linen curtains of the room, illuminating the impeccable details of the decor Helena had personally chosen. Everything there was perfect, harmonious, elegant, just like her. He turned in bed and observed his wife, still asleep. Her dark hair was spread across the silk pillow, her delicate features relaxed in sleep, her breathing soft and rhythmic. Helena was, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful women he had ever known. When they married 2 years ago, Victor was certain he had found the ideal companion. She was refined, educated, came from a traditional family, and seemed to fit perfectly into the life he had built as a successful businessman in the capital. But lately something had been bothering him. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, like a dissonant note in a perfect symphony. In recent months, Victor had begun to notice small details that didn't make sense. The coldness with which Helena sometimes referred to her daughters, the way her smile seemed rehearsed when they were in public, the way she looked away whenever he mentioned spending more time at home. Victor got up carefully so as not to wake her and went to the bathroom. While shaving, his thoughts returned to the previous night. They had dined with some of his colleagues at an elegant restaurant in the city's upscale neighborhood. During dessert, one of the friends had told a story that had left him thoughtful. It was about an acquaintance who had discovered his wife's true personality only after years of marriage, when he began to pay attention to the moments when she thought she was alone. The story had disturbed him more than he cared to admit, because deep down, Victor knew he had doubts about Helena, doubts that grew each time he traveled for work and returned home to find his daughters quieter, more withdrawn. Chiara and Olivia were only 7 years old. They were identical twins with the same brown curls and expressive eyes they inherited from their biological mother. Victor's first wife had died when the girls were only 2, and he had raised them alone for 3 years before meeting Helena. When he introduced Helena to the girls, she seemed genuinely interested in winning them over. She brought gifts, smiled, and spoke in a sweet voice. Victor remembered how emotional he had been seeing the 3 of them together for the first time, thinking that finally, his daughters would have a mother figure again. Helena even cried when he proposed, saying that she had always dreamed of having a family. But now, 2 years later, Victor couldn't help but notice the changes. The girls, who had once been cheerful and talkative, had become quiet and cautious. Chiara, the most introspective, spent hours locked in her room drawing. Olivia, always bolder and more protective of her sister, had developed a habit of being in a constant state of alert, as if she expected something bad to happen at any moment. Victor descended the stairs of the mansion where they lived. The house was large, with 3 floors, a swimming pool, and a garden that looked like it came straight out of a magazine. Everything was meticulously cared for, organized, impeccable. Helena insisted on this. She had dismissed almost all the employees who worked there before the wedding, bringing in her own staff. Only Rose, the housekeeper who had cared for the girls since they were babies, remained, because Victor had insisted. Upon entering the kitchen, he found Luca, the cook Helena had hired a year ago, preparing breakfast. The man was competent, discreet, and prepared meals worthy of sophisticated restaurants. They greeted each other with a nod. Victor poured himself some coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, something he rarely did. He usually had coffee at the office or went straight to work. Luca seemed a little surprised by his presence there, but said nothing. He continued working silently, cutting fruit and preparing bread. Victor watched the cook's precise movements, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about how, in recent months, he had hardly been home. Constant business trips, meetings that stretched into the night, social engagements. When he arrived home, usually late, the Girls were already asleep, and Helena always greeted him with a perfect smile, a cold kiss and superficial news about the day. Did he really know the woman he shared his life with, or was he living with a stranger playing a role? The sound of delicate footsteps on the stairs pulled him from his thoughts. Helena entered the kitchen wearing a white silk robe, her hair styled in an elegant bun. She seemed surprised to see him still at home. "Good morning, darling. I thought you'd already left for the office," she said, her voice melodious and controlled. "Good morning, Helena. I decided to leave a little later today. I only have a meeting at 10, Victor replied, observing her intently. Helena poured herself some tea, took a piece of toast, and sat down at the table, but not next to him. She kept a chair's distance, as she always did. Victor had never noticed this before, but now he did. She never sat near him voluntarily. She never sought spontaneous physical contact. Everything about her was measured, calculated, appropriate. "Are the girls still sleeping?" Victor asked. "Yes, Rose should wake them soon for school," Helena replied, stirring her tea distractedly. Her tone was neutral, almost disinterested. "I've noticed they've been very quiet lately. Have you noticed anything different?" Helena looked up at him, and for a split second, Victor thought he saw something in her eyes. Irritation? Impatience? But it was so quick he wasn't sure. "They're just kids, Victor. They have their moments. You know how it is. One day they're talkative, another day they're more introverted. It's normal," she said, shrugging. "But don't you think we should be concerned? Maybe take them to a child psychologist?" Victor insisted. For the first time, he saw Helena display a genuine emotion, irritation. "Psychologist? Victor, you're exaggerating. The girls are perfectly fine. They just need more discipline and less pampering. You've always been too permissive with them." The word pampering sounded strange coming from her, as if showing affection were something negative. Victor felt a growing discomfort. "They lost their mother very early, Helena. They need affection. They need understanding," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "And I don't give them that?" Helena retorted, now clearly annoyed. "I take care of them. I make sure they have everything they need. I keep this house running perfectly. What more do you expect from me?" Victor remained silent. Technically, Helena was right. The girls had nice clothes, attended an excellent school, and had private music and English lessons. But something was missing, something essential that he couldn't name. The moment was interrupted by Rose's arrival in the kitchen. The housekeeper, a middle-aged woman with grey hair tied in a simple bun, greeted them discreetly. Victor had always liked Rose. She had a kind look and had cared for the girls with genuine dedication since they were born. But he noticed something about her too. She seemed more tired, more tense. There were deep, dark circles under her eyes. "Good morning, Rose. How are the girls?" Victor asked. "Good morning, Mr. Victor. They are fine. I'll wake them up for breakfast," Rose replied, but her voice sounded tired. Helena interrupted. "Rose, don't forget that today is piano lesson day. The girls need to be ready at 3 o'clock sharp. I don't want any latecomers." "Yes, Mrs. Helena," Rose replied, lowering her eyes. Victor noticed the change in Helena's tone when speaking to the housekeeper. It was authoritarian, cold, almost disrespectful, completely different from the tone she used with him, or when they were in public. After Rose left, Helena turned her attention to her husband. His face had regained its usual serene and composed expression. "You're going to travel next week, aren't you?" she asked. "Yes, I have that conference in another capital. I'll be away for 4 days," Victor replied. "Great, enjoy the trip. Everything will be fine here," Helena said, and there was something in her tone that Victor couldn't decipher. Was it satisfaction? Relief? Victor finished his coffee in silence. He said goodbye to Helena and went to the girls' room before leaving for work. He knocked lightly on the door and entered. Chiara and Olivia were sitting on the bed, still in their pajamas, while Rose was sorting out their school uniforms. The girls looked at him with wide eyes, as if his presence there was something surprising. "Good morning, my princesses," said Victor, smiling and opening his arms. For a moment the girls stood motionless. Then Olivia stood up and ran to hug him, followed shyly by Chiara. Victor hugged them tightly, feeling his heart clench. When was the last time he had done this? When was the last time he had truly paid attention to his daughters. "Dad, are you going to stay home today?" Olivia asked, her voice filled with hope. "No, darling. I need to go to work. But I promise we'll do something special together this weekend. How about we go to the park?" The girls exchanged a quick glance, one of those looks that only twins can exchange, full of silent meaning. "Can we, Dad?" Kiara asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Of course they can." "Why couldn't they?" Victor replied, confused. The girls didn't answer, they just lowered their eyes. Rose, who was nearby, also looked away. Victor left the house disturbed. All the way to the office, he couldn't get that scene out of his head. Why did the girls seem so surprised by his suggestion to go to the park? Why that look of uncertainty? In his office, he tried to concentrate on his work, but the conversation from the previous night kept echoing in his mind. You never really know someone until you observe them when you think they're not being watched. Did he really know Helena? Or was he married to an edited version of her? A carefully rehearsed performance? During lunch, Victor made a decision. He called Luca, the cook. "Luca, I need to talk to you. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" The cook seemed surprised by the request, but agreed. 2 hours later, Luca was sitting in Victor's living room, clearly uncomfortable. "Luca, how long have you been working at my house?" Victor began. 1 year, Mr. Victor." "And how has it been? Are you satisfied with the work?" Luca hesitated before replying. "Yes, sir. It's a good job." Victor noticed the hesitation. "Luca, I'll be direct with you. I'm going to make you an unusual proposal, but I need you to seriously consider it." He paused. "I want you to resign." The cook's eyes widened, clearly frightened. "Sir, did I do something wrong? If it was something I cooked—" "No, it's nothing like that. Let me explain." Victor leaned forward. "I'll pay you a generous compensation, the equivalent of a year's salary. But I need you to leave today without giving detailed explanations. You can simply say you received a better offer elsewhere." Luca remained silent, processing the information. "May I ask why?" "It's a personal matter, but I assure you that you're not being punished for anything." "On the contrary, I'm offering you good compensation," said Victor. After a few minutes of negotiation, Luca agreed. Victor took a deep breath. The first part of the plan was in motion. Now came the hardest part. He himself would take Luca's place in the kitchen. Victor spent the next 2 days meticulously preparing his plan. He hired a disguise consultant to modify his appearance. He shaved off the beard he had kept for years, dyed his hair a darker shade, started wearing clear-lensed glasses, and completely changed his style of clothing. He also hired a trusted lawyer and explained the situation, asking that everything be documented in case he needed it in the future. The hardest part was creating a convincing fake identity. Victor decided to use the name Marco, an experienced cook, who, according to the forged documents, had worked in several prestigious restaurants. He knew he was taking a big risk, that it could backfire on him in unpredictable ways, but something inside him told him he needed to do it. He needed to see with his own eyes what happened in his house when he wasn't there. On Friday morning, Luca officially resigned. Helena was visibly annoyed by the news but maintained her composure. Victor, who was home that day, also pretended to be bothered by the cook's sudden departure. He simply said he received a better offer. He didn't give any more details, explained Victor, following the script agreed upon with Luca. "This is extremely inconvenient," said Helena, frowning. "I'll need to find a replacement quickly. I can't be without a proper cook." "I have a suggestion," said Victor, as if the idea had just occurred to him. "My assistant mentioned knowing a cook who's looking for a job. Marco, I think his name is. Could you interview him?" Helena looked at him suspiciously. "You've never been involved in hiring before." "Well, since Luca was competent and I liked his work, I thought I'd help. But if you prefer to look for it on your own," said Victor, shrugging. Helena sighed. "No, fine. Ask Marco to come in on Monday for an interview, but make it clear that you'll be strict. I don't tolerate sloppiness in my home." Victor nodded, hiding his nervousness. Everything was falling into place. Now he just needed to convincingly portray Marco. Over the weekend, Victor kept his promise to his daughters and took them to the park. Helena claimed to have an unavoidable commitment with friends and didn't accompany them, which secretly relieved him. He wanted to spend time alone with Chiara and Olivia, observing them without interference. The girls seemed almost unrecognizable away from home. In the park, Olivia ran, laughed, and played on the swings with an energy Victor hadn't seen in months. Chiara, though more reserved, also smiled more, drew in the sand with sticks, and invented stories about the clouds. It was as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. "You all seem very happy today," Victor commented, sitting down next to them on a bench while they ate ice cream. "It's because you're here, Dad," Olivia said simply. "But I'm always there, at home," Victor replied, confused. The girls exchanged that look again, full of unspoken meaning. Chiara stirred her ice cream without looking at her father. "It's not the same thing," she murmured. "What do you mean, darling?" Victor insisted, feeling his heart clench. Olivia opened her mouth to reply, but Chiara nudged her lightly, and the more talkative twin fell silent immediately. It was as if there was a code between them, a pact of silence. "Girls, you know you can tell me anything, right? If something is wrong, if someone is doing something that makes you sad," Victor began, choosing his words carefully. "Everything's fine, Dad," Olivia said quickly with a forced smile. "We just enjoy spending time with you." Victor didn't insist any further, but he kept that conversation in his heart. There was fear there. He could feel it. His daughters were afraid of something, or someone. When they returned home in the late afternoon, Helena was already there. She greeted them with her perfect smile and asked how the outing had been, but Victor noticed that she didn't really listen to the answers. Her questions were automatic, mechanical, like someone following a social script. "Girls, go take a bath and then come down for dinner," Helena ordered, and her voice had a tone that left no room for discussion. The girls obeyed immediately, climbing the stairs in silence. Victor observed the transformation in them. The joy of the park had evaporated instantly. They were tense again, cautious, like frightened little birds. That night, after the girls had gone to bed, Victor found Rose in the kitchen. The housekeeper was finishing putting away the dinner dishes. She seemed surprised to see him there. "Mr. Victor, do you need anything?" she asked nervously. "Rose, please sit down for a moment," said Victor, indicating a chair. The housekeeper hesitated, looking around as if expecting someone to appear. Finally, she sat on the edge of the chair, her hands crossed in her lap. "I want to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest with me," Victor began. "Are my daughters okay? Really okay?" Rose turned pale. Her eyes filled with tears that she tried to hold back. But Victor saw them. He saw the conflict in her face, the internal battle between the desire to speak and the fear of something. "Mr. Victor, she began, but her voice faltered. "Rose, you've taken care of my daughters since they were born. I trust you more than anyone else in this house. If something is wrong, I need to know," Victor insisted, keeping his voice low and gentle. The housekeeper began to cry silently. "Sir, I can't. If I speak, I'll lose my job. And my mother, she's ill. She needs expensive medicine. I can't lose this job." Victor felt a chill down his spine. "Rose, what's going on here?" "I can't say, but—" She looked at him with desperate eyes. "Please stay home longer. Pay attention. The girls, they need you." Before Victor could ask any more questions, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Rose stood up quickly, wiping away her tears and returning to tidying the kitchen as if nothing had happened. Helena appeared in the doorway, watching them with a suspicious look. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone polite but with a hint of coldness. "I just came to get some water," Victor said casually. "Rose was telling me about the new vegetable supplier." Helena looked at him for a long moment, as if assessing whether she believed him or not. Finally, she nodded and withdrew. Victor went up to his room but couldn't sleep. He stayed awake all night, thinking about everything he had seen and heard. The fear in Rose's eyes, the tension in her daughters, Helena's transformation when she thought no one important was watching. Everything confirmed his suspicions, but he needed proof. He needed to see it with his own eyes. Monday arrived sooner than Victor expected. He woke up early, put on the simple clothes he had bought for his disguise, put on his glasses and looked at himself in the mirror of the small apartment he had rented to hide in for the next few days. The man staring back at him was unrecognizable. Marco, the cook, his new self. He took a deep breath and drove to his own house, parking in the back entrance as an employee would. He rang the doorbell at the service entrance and waited, his heart pounding. Rose answered, and Victor saw the shock in her eyes when she recognized him despite the disguise. He put a finger to his lips, asking for silence. Rose understood immediately, and with trembling hands led him to the kitchen. "Mrs. Helena is upstairs. She'll come down to interview you," whispered Rose, still clearly in shock. "Rose, don't tell anyone, please," Victor pleaded in a low voice. The housekeeper nodded, her eyes glistening with tears again. "Mr. Victor, if you truly want to know what's going on here, stay. But be careful. She's not who you think she is." Before Victor could answer, they heard Helena's heels coming down the stairs. Rose quickly moved away, resuming her tasks. Victor, or rather Marco, straightened his shoulders and prepared for the interview. Helena entered the kitchen with all her usual elegance. She wore a discreet but expensive dress, her hair impeccably styled, her posture perfect. She examined him from head to toe with a critical eye, assessing every detail. "Are you Marco?" she asked, her tone neutral. "Yes, ma'am. Marco Allianz." "Thank you for the interview opportunity," Victor replied, his voice slightly different from his usual one, a little deeper and with a subtle accent. "Did you bring references?" Victor handed over the folder, containing carefully forged documents. Helena examined everything meticulously, asking questions about past experiences, culinary specialties, and availability. Victor answered confidently, drawing on what he had learned observing Luca during the previous year and on research he had conducted. "The rules of this house are strict," Helena said finally, handing back the documents. "I expect absolute punctuality, total discretion, and excellence in everything you do. I do not tolerate unnecessary conversations with other employees, nor excessive familiarity with the children of the house. You are here to cook, not to socialize. Understood?" "Perfectly, ma'am," Victor replied, noting how she referred to her own stepdaughters as the children of the house with utter detachment. "Very well, you can start tomorrow. Rose will show you your duties and the household routine. Is the salary my husband mentioned acceptable?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you're hired. Don't let me down, Marco." Helena left the kitchen, and Victor finally breathed a sigh of relief. The first part was complete. Now the real investigation began. Now he would see, without filters or masks, who the woman he had married truly was. Rose approached him as soon as they were alone. "Mr. Victor, are you sure about this?" "Yes." "Rose, and I'm going to need your help. I need to know everything that happens here when when my boss isn't around." Rose closed her eyes for a moment, as if making a difficult decision. When she opened them again, there was determination there. "So get ready, sir, because what you're about to see will break your heart." Victor's first day as Marco began at 6 in the morning. He arrived through the back entrance, wearing the white cook's uniform that Rose had set aside for him. The house was still silent, enveloped in the twilight that precedes dawn. In the kitchen, he began preparing breakfast, following the detailed instructions Helena had left on a list stuck to the refrigerator. Everything was meticulously specified: the type of bread, the temperature of the coffee, the arrangement of the fruit on the plate. It was almost obsessive. Victor had never noticed it before because he simply ate what was served without questioning. But now, from the other side, he saw the level of control Helena exerted over every aspect of the house. Rose arrived at 6:30, looking exhausted. She avoided looking directly at Victor, clearly still uncomfortable with the situation. She began tidying the dining room and checking to see if everything was in order upstairs. At 7 o'clock sharp, footsteps could be heard descending the stairs. Helena appeared, already impeccably dressed and made up, as if she were about to leave for an important event. She examined the breakfast table with a critical eye, checking every detail, Victor watched from afar, through the half-open kitchen door. "Rose!" Helena called, her voice echoing through the house. The housekeeper appeared immediately. "Yes, Mrs. Helena?" "The napkin is crooked. How many times do I have to tell you that everything should be perfect? And the flower vase is 2 centimeters off center. You're becoming careless," said Helena, her tone icy. "Excuse me, ma'am. I'll fix it now," Rose replied, lowering her head. Victor felt anger rising within him. It was just a slightly crooked napkin, something no normal person would notice or care about. But Helena wasn't satisfied. She watched Rose fix the smallest details with a disdainful expression, as if the housekeeper were utterly incompetent. "Where are the children?" Helena asked, never using the girls' names. "Still sleeping, ma'am. I'll wake you in 5 minutes, as usual." "No, let them sleep. For another 15 minutes. They were unbearably noisy last night. Let them rest now, because later they will learn to behave properly," said Helena, and there was something unsettling in her tone. Rose turned pale, but said nothing. Victor felt a shiver run down his spine. What did Helena mean by learning to behave properly? Helena drank her coffee alone, in silence, reading something on her tablet. She finished quickly and went back upstairs, leaving instructions for lunch to be ready at exactly noon. Victor took the opportunity to speak with Rose. "What did she mean by that?" he whispered. Rose looked around, checking to make sure they were really alone. "The girls, they laughed loudly last night while playing in the room. Mrs. Helena said that was disrespectful, that they were disturbing the peace of the house." "They're children, for God's sake. Children laugh," said Victor, having to control the volume of his voice. "I know, Mr. Victor, but Mrs. Helena, she can't stand noise. She can't stand disorder. She can't stand anything she considers imperfect." Rose paused, her eyes welling up with tears, and the girls to her are the very definition of imperfection. Before Victor could answer, they heard footsteps upstairs. Rose quickly returned to work, and Victor went back to the kitchen to begin preparing lunch. But his heart was racing, his mind working to process what he had just heard. Half an hour later, the girls came down for breakfast. Victor watched them through the crack in the door. Chiara and Olivia came down slowly, hand in hand, their steps cautious. They were dressed in impeccable school uniforms, their hair tied up in perfect braids, but their faces were pale, tense. Helena was already waiting in the dining room, standing with her arms crossed. As soon as the girls entered, Victor saw the transformation. Helena's face, which seconds before had been relaxed as she fiddled with her phone, became hard and cold. "Late," she said simply. "I'm sorry, Mom Helena," Chiara murmured, her voice barely audible. Victor had to hold his breath. Chiara had called her Mommy Helena. He had never asked the girls to call her that. Had this been Helena's decision, or did the girls do it out of fear? "Sit down," Helena ordered, "and eat in silence. I don't want to hear a single word." The girls sat obediently. Victor watched, heartbroken, as his daughters ate in absolute silence, each movement measured, each gesture careful. Olivia accidentally dropped a piece of bread on the floor. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Helena stood up, walked slowly over to Olivia, and stood beside her, looking down with a cold expression. "You dropped the bread," Helena said, her voice low but heavy with threat. "It was an accident, Mom Helena. I'm sorry," said Olivia, her voice trembling. "Accidentally. Everything with you is accidental, isn't it? You're clumsy, careless, a girl who doesn't know how to behave." Helena picked up the piece of bread from the floor. "Take this and go throw it in the trash, now." Olivia stood up, her hands trembling, grabbed the bread, and ran to the kitchen. That's when she saw Victor. Her eyes widened in surprise, but before she could say anything, Victor put his finger to his lips, gesturing for silence. Olivia understood immediately. She threw the bread in the trash and ran back to the dining room. Victor had tears in his eyes. To see his daughter, his little Olivia, who had always been so brave and full of life, reduced to a state of terror because of a fallen piece of bread, was unbearable. The girls finished breakfast in complete silence. Helena didn't eat anything, just watched them like a hawk watches its prey. When they were finished, she ordered them to get ready for school. Rose accompanied them to their room. Alone in the dining room, Helena smiled to herself. A cold, satisfied smile. Victor saw that smile and felt his blood run cold. This wasn't normal. There was something deeply wrong with Helena, something that went beyond simple rigidity or demands for discipline. There was pleasure there. Pleasure in controlling, in dominating, in instilling fear. The day continued, revealing layer after layer of the real Helena. When the girls left for school, she changed completely. She stayed on the phone for hours, laughing, chatting animatedly with friends, her voice cheerful and light. It was as if she were a completely different person. Victor, working in the kitchen, heard everything and became increasingly disturbed. In the afternoon, when the girls returned from school, the transformation happened again. Helena hung up the phone, her face hardened, and she reverted to her role as the strict stepmother. The girls had private piano lessons at 3 o'clock. Victor saw when the teacher arrived, a kind elderly lady who tried to teach the girls patiently. But Helena stayed in the room, watching and constantly interrupting. "Chiara, you're playing it wrong." "Again," Helena said, her voice sharp. "I'm sorry, Mommy Helena." "I'll try again," Chiara replied, her small hands trembling on the keys. "Trying isn't enough. You need to get it right. Why is it so hard for you to do things right?" The piano teacher tried to intervene gently. "Mrs. Helena, Chiara is progressing well. She just needs more practice and encouragement." "Encouragement?" Helena laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "Encouragement is for children who try hard. These two are lazy and inattentive. They need to learn that life doesn't give second chances." Victor, who was preparing an afternoon snack in the kitchen, had to hold on to the counter. His daughters were 7 years old. 7 years old, and Helena treated them as if they were incompetent adults who deserved constant punishment. The piano lesson ended on a tense note. The teacher left, clearly uncomfortable. The girls were sent to their room to do their homework. With Helena's explicit order not to make any noise, Rose took advantage of the moment when Helena went upstairs to take a shower to bring the girls a snack. Victor discreetly followed her, staying in the hallway while the housekeeper went into the room. He heard the low voices. "You can eat your snack, dears. I made cookies just the way you like them," Rose said affectionately. "Thank you, Rose, you're the best," Olivia replied, and there was so much genuine love in her voice that Victor felt like crying. "Rose," it was Chiara now, her voice hesitant. "Are you leaving? I heard Mom Helena talking on the phone that you're getting old and that you're going to need to hire someone else." Victor heard Rose sobbing softly. "I don't know, darling, I hope not, but if I have to go, you two need to be strong, okay? You have each other, and that's the most important thing." "But without you, who will protect us?" Olivia asked, and there was so much fear in her voice that Victor had to bite his lip to keep from screaming. "Your father loves you very much. He just needs to see what's happening. I'm sure that when he knows everything, he'll protect you," Rose said, and Victor realized she was speaking to him as well, knowing he was listening. When Rose left the room, she found Victor in the hallway, tears silently streaming down his face. She quickly took him back to the kitchen before anyone saw them. "Now do you understand?" Rose whispered. "Now do you see what I see every day?" Victor couldn't answer. He was processing everything, every interaction, every cruel word, every moment of fear in his daughter's eyes. How had he been so blind? How hadn't he realized his daughters were living under a regime of terror? "How long has this been going on, Rose?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. "From the very beginning, Mr. Victor. From day one. But in the first few months, she was more careful when you were around. Over time, as you traveled more and worked more, she became increasingly bold. Now she doesn't even care if the other employees see. She knows they're all too afraid to tell." "Why didn't you tell me before? Why didn't you say anything?" Rose lowered her eyes, tears falling. "I tried, sir. Remember that time 6 months ago when I tried to talk to you? About the girls? You were in a hurry going to the airport. You said we'd talk later, but later never came. And then Mrs. Helena called me into her office and said that if I tried to cause trouble, she would fire me and make sure I never got a job anywhere again. She found out about my sick mother, about my situation. She knows everything about all of us, and she uses that as a weapon." Victor vaguely remembered that day. Rose had indeed tried to speak with him, but he was late for an important meeting and had dismissed her quickly. Once again, his work had been more important than his daughter's. Once again, he had failed. The following days were a progressive descent into the private hell his daughters were living through. Victor, disguised as Marco, witnessed scene after scene that broke his heart and fueled a growing fury within him. Each interaction between Helena and Chiara and Olivia revealed deeper layers of emotional cruelty. On Wednesday, Olivia spilled juice on the living room floor during breakfast. The glass slipped from her small hands, and the orange liquid splattered across the white marble floor. The silence that followed was deafening. Chiara froze, her fork in mid-air, her eyes wide with fear. Olivia stared at the puddle of juice in horror, as if she had made an irreparable mistake. Helena slowly rose from her chair. Her footsteps echoed through the room as she walked toward Olivia. Victor watched from the kitchen, every muscle in his body tense, wanting to intervene but knowing he couldn't reveal himself yet. He needed more evidence, more proof of Helena's pattern of behavior. "You're a clumsy and incompetent child," Helena said, her voice low but full of venom. "I can't understand how someone can be so incapable of doing the simplest things. You constantly disappoint me." "I'm sorry, Mom Helena. It was an accident," Olivia murmured, tears beginning to roll down her face. "Accidents happen occasionally. With you, they're constant. This isn't an accident, it's incompetence." Helena grabbed a cloth and threw it at Olivia's feet. "Clean this up, now, on your knees. And when you're done, you won't have breakfast. Maybe you'll learn to be more careful when you're hungry." Olivia, just 7 years old, knelt on the floor and began to clean up the juice, her shoulders trembling with silent sobs. Chiara wanted to help her sister. Victor could see it in her eyes, but fear kept her paralyzed in her chair. Victor had to leave the kitchen. He went to the staff bathroom and locked himself in, his hands gripping the sink so tightly his fingers turned white. He took a deep breath, trying to control the anger that threatened to explode. He couldn't reveal himself now, not yet. But seeing his daughter humiliated like that was torture. When she returned, Olivia was still cleaning the floor even after all the juice had been removed. Helena watched with satisfaction, while calmly drinking her tea. It was Rose who finally intervened, saying that the girls needed to get ready for school, or they would be late. Helena allowed Olivia to get up, but kept her word. The girl went to school without breakfast. That afternoon, Victor waited for Rose in the kitchen when she returned from taking the girls to school. He needed to know more. He needed to understand the extent of what was happening. "Rose, you mentioned that there's something in Helena's past, something her family has hushed up," Victor said, keeping his voice low. The housekeeper looked around nervously before answering. "Mr. Victor, that was many years ago. I was working for another family at the time, a wealthy family like hers. Mrs. Helena was invited to a party. She was there with her parents. There was a small child in the house, the owner's son, a boy of perhaps 5 years old." Rose paused as if reluctant to continue. Victor waited patiently. "The child was playing, making noise like children do. Mrs. Helena was there, still young, perhaps in her early 20s. Suddenly she exploded. She started yelling at the child, saying horrible things. When the boy's mother tried to intervene, Mrs. Helena pushed her. It was chaos. She had a complete meltdown, breaking objects, screaming that she couldn't stand noise, that she couldn't stand disorder, that everything needed to be perfect." Victor felt his heart race. What happened next? They called an ambulance. She was taken to a very expensive and discreet private clinic. Her family paid a lot of money to keep everything private, to avoid public records. A few months later, she returned, seemingly recovered. But I never forgot that scene, the look in her eyes, Mr. Victor. It wasn't just anger. It was pure hatred for anything that wasn't perfect, controlled. "Why didn't you ever tell me this?" Victor asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it. "Because when you introduced her as your fiancé, she recognized me immediately. She called me aside and made it clear that if I told anyone about it, she would destroy my life. She said she had contacts, that she could make me lose any job. And my mother, Mr. Victor, she needs constant care. I can't lose this job. Without it, I have no way to pay for her treatments. Victor placed his hand on Rose's shoulder. You won't lose anything, I promise, but I need you to be my witness when the time comes. I need you to tell me all of this officially. Rose nodded, wiping away her tears. I'll do anything to protect these girls, sir. Anything. That night, something happened that Victor would never forget. The girls were in their room, supposedly asleep. Victor was in the kitchen, preparing dinner for the next day, when he heard music. It was piano, but not the rigid and formal melody that the teacher taught. It was something cheerful, spontaneous, creative. It was Chiara playing. Victor silently climbed the stairs. Through the half-open door of the girls' room, he saw Chiara at the small keyboard they had there, playing a melody she had invented herself. Olivia was beside her, dancing and giggling softly. The two were happy, simply being children. But then Helena appeared. Victor hadn't seen her come up the stairs. She opened the bedroom door abruptly, and the music stopped instantly. The girls froze, the smiles vanishing from their faces as if they had never existed. "What do you think you're doing?" Helena asked, her voice icy. "We were just playing." "Mommy Helena," said Chiara, her voice trembling. "Playing around, making noise when you should be sleeping. You're selfish. You only think of yourselves, with no consideration for anyone else in this house." Helena walked to the keyboard and slammed the lid shut. "There will be no more music in this room. You've lost that privilege." "But Mommy Helena, Daddy gave us the keyboard," Olivia protested bravely. It was a mistake. Helena turned to Olivia so quickly that the girl took a step back. "Your father isn't here, is he? And when he's not, I'm in charge. You're going to learn to obey me no matter what." She pointed to the bed. "Now to bed, and if I hear a single sound coming from this room, you're not leaving it tomorrow, understand?" The girls ran to their beds, pulling the blankets up to their chins. Helena turned off the light and left, slamming the door. Victor was hiding in the hallway, watching everything. When Helena passed by him without noticing his presence in the dim light, he saw her face. She was smiling, satisfied, happy with the fear she had caused. Victor returned to the kitchen in a state of shock. He sat on a stool, his head in his hands. How had he married that woman? How had he not seen the signs? Or had there been signs, and he, blinded by her superficial charm, had simply ignored them? Hours later, when the house was silent and everyone was supposedly asleep, Victor went upstairs again. He needed to see his daughters, even from a distance. Their bedroom door was ajar. He peeked carefully. Chiara and Olivia were awake, cuddled up in the same bed, whispering to each other. Victor managed to overhear fragments of their conversation. "When is Daddy coming?" "Back?" Chiara asked. "I don't know, but when he comes back, she'll pretend to be good again. She always pretends," Olivia replied. "I wish Rose could stay with us forever." "Me too. But I heard Mom Helena saying she's going to send her away. And then we'll be alone with her." There was a heavy silence. Then Olivia said, her voice barely audible, "We have each other, Chiara. We always will. No matter what happens." The two hugged each other tighter, and Victor saw tears streaming down both their faces. His daughters, his brave little daughters, comforting each other because they had no one else, because he, their father, was too absent to notice the hell they were living through. Victor had to walk away before his own tears betrayed him. He went downstairs and out into the back garden, where he finally allowed emotion to overwhelm him. He wept for the stolen innocence of his daughters, for the trust he had broken by bringing them into that situation, for the blindness that had prevented him from seeing the truth. But the tears eventually gave way to determination. He was no longer the busy businessman who put work above family. He was no longer the naive man who believed in perfect appearances. He was a father whose daughters needed him, and he would not fail them again. The following morning, Victor carefully observed each interaction. He began making mental notes, memorizing dates, times, and contexts. He knew that eventually he would need concrete evidence, not just his testimony. He needed to build a case that was irrefutable. During breakfast, Helena received a call. It was one of her friends from her social circle, inviting her to a charity luncheon. Victor watched her transform instantly. Her voice became sweet, cheerful, full of enthusiasm. She laughed, made jokes, she was charming. When she hung up the phone and looked at the girls, the mask slipped again. Her face hardened, and she ordered them to finish eating in silence. It was disturbing to see how she could change so completely, so quickly, as if she were two completely different people sharing the same body. In the afternoon, the girls' English teacher arrived for their weekly lesson. She was a young, patient woman who genuinely enjoyed teaching. But even she wasn't immune to Helena's control. During the lesson, Helena constantly interrupted, criticizing the teacher's methods, saying that the girls weren't progressing fast enough. "Perhaps the problem isn't with them, but with their education," Helena said at one point, her tone sharp. The teacher tried to defend herself politely, explaining that each child learns at their own pace, but Helena wouldn't listen. At the end of the class, the teacher left visibly shaken. Victor saw her stop in the entrance hall, her eyes brimming with tears, clearly questioning whether she should continue working there. Rose appeared beside her, offering her a glass of water. The two spoke in hushed voices, but Victor, who was nearby, managed to hear them. "Has she always been like this?" the teacher asked. "Always," Rose replied sadly. "The poor girls live under constant pressure. Nothing they do is ever good enough for her. I should report this. I should tell their father." Rose sighed. "He's always traveling, always busy, and when he's here she's completely different. No one would believe it." Victor felt guilt tighten his chest. Even the people around him had noticed his absence, his failure to protect his own daughters. But that was about to change. On the 6th day of his disguise, Victor began to notice something that disturbed him even more deeply. Helena not only controlled and humiliated the girls, she seemed to feed on their fear. There was a visible satisfaction in her eyes every time Chiara or Olivia cowered before her, every time their voices trembled as they answered her questions. That Saturday morning, when Victor would normally be home, Helena seemed especially tense. It was as if his absence, as she believed he was supposed to be traveling on business, was making her uneasy. She walked around the house checking every detail, finding imaginary flaws in everything. The girls were in their room trying to remain invisible. Victor discreetly went upstairs and saw through the half-open door that Chiara was drawing in a notebook. He approached silently and managed to see what she was drawing. It was their house, but in Chiara's version, the house was dark, with windows that looked like empty eyes. In the center of the drawing, a tall, imposing female figure with a frightening smile. In the shadows, two small figures hid. Victor's heart broke when he saw how his daughters perceived their home, not as a refuge but as a prison. He retreated silently before the girls. Noticed him. Downstairs, Helena was on the phone again. Victor heard her talking to someone, her voice irritated. "No, Mom, I'm not going to dinner tonight. I'm tired of these pointless family gatherings. You and Dad can pretend we're the perfect family, but I don't need to participate in this charade every week." Pause. "The children. They're fine. You know I take good care of them. What more do you want from me?" Another, longer pause. "Don't start with that again. I don't need therapy. I'm perfectly fine. That was years ago and it was just stress." Victor felt a chill. Rose had mentioned Helena's breakdown in the past, but hearing Helena herself refer to it even indirectly confirmed everything. And the fact that her family was still worried years later suggested that the problem was more serious than she admitted. Helena hung up the phone angrily and shouted, "Rose, where are you?" The housekeeper appeared quickly. "Yes, Mrs. Helena." "Bring the children down here, now. I need to talk to them." Rose climbed the stairs with heavy steps. Victor followed her discreetly, keeping his distance. He saw her enter the girls' room and helped them down. Chiara and Olivia were pale, clearly frightened. In the living room, Helena sat in an armchair, her posture regal like a queen about to judge her subjects. The girls stood before her, holding hands. "I received a call from the school," Helena began, her voice dangerously calm. "The math teacher said that you two are having difficulties, that you're not keeping up with the class." "Sorry, Mom, Helena. Let's study more," Olivia said quickly. "Study more? You already have private lessons. You have all the resources possible. The problem isn't the resources, it's you. You're lazy, inattentive, and frankly, a disgrace," Chiara began, to cry silently. Helena looked at her with disdain, And now the crying, always the crying. Do you think tears solve anything? Do you think anyone cares about your whining? We'll get better, we promise, Olivia said, trying to protect her sister as she always did. Improve? Helena laughed, but it was a cold, humorless laugh. Do you know why your father married me? Because he needed someone to take care of you, someone to turn you into decent people. But it's becoming increasingly clear that perhaps that's impossible. Perhaps you're simply incapable of being better. Victor, hiding in the hallway, had to control himself to avoid exploding. Each of Helena's words was a stab in the heart of her daughters, a deliberate attempt to destroy their self-esteem, to make them believe they were inadequate, unwanted. I've been thinking, Helena continued, standing up and walking around the girls like a predator circling its prey. Perhaps you need a more structured environment, a boarding school where you can learn real discipline, where you can't just cry and expect someone to pity you. The girls hugged each other, terrified. Please, no, Chiara whispered. Please, Mommy Helena, we'll be better. We promise. We'll, see, said Helena, sitting down again. For now you're going to your rooms. I don't want to see you for the rest of the day, and there will be no dinner for you tonight. Perhaps hunger will teach you to appreciate what you have. The girls ran to their room, and Victor heard their sobs as they climbed the stairs. Rose, who had witnessed everything, had tears streaming down her face. She looked at Helena with an expression of pure despair. Mrs. Helena, they are children. They need to eat, said Rose, gathering her courage. Helena turned to her slowly, her eyes narrowed. Are you questioning my decisions, Rose? I just think that you're not paid to find anything. You're paid to obey. And if you can't do that, maybe it's time we found someone who can. Rose paled. I'm sorry, Mrs. Helena. I won't ask again. Great, and since you're so concerned about the children, you can spend the day cleaning their room from top to bottom. It's an unacceptable mess. I want everything reorganized, every toy in its right place, every book perfectly aligned. And when you're finished, clean the upstairs bathrooms too. It was punishment disguised as work. Helena was punishing Rose for daring to defend the girls. Victor watched the governess leave the room, her shoulders slumped, defeated. That afternoon, while Rose was cleaning and Helena was out for a social engagement, Victor went up to the girls' room. He knocked softly on the door. Olivia opened it, her eyes still red from crying. When she saw it was the cook, she hesitated. May I come in? Victor asked in a gentle voice. The girls exchanged a glance and nodded. Victor entered, closing the door behind him. The room was beautiful, tastefully decorated, full of expensive toys and books. But there was a coldness there, a lack of personality. It was like a hotel room, not a child's room. I brought some sandwiches, said Victor, pulling 2 packages wrapped in napkins from his pocket. I know you must be hungry. The girls gratefully accepted the sandwiches, but before eating, Olivia asked, What if she finds out? He won't find out. I'll keep watch, Victor replied, his heart clenching, as he realized that even a simple act of kindness had to be hidden like a crime. While the girls ate, Victor looked around the room. He saw Chiara's notebooks hidden under the bed, the drawings she secretly made. He saw Olivia's small diary in a half-open drawer. He saw 2 girls who had learned to hide their true personalities, their dreams, their hopes, because Helena saw all of that as weakness. You are very brave, you know that, Victor said softly. Chiara looked at him in surprise. Brave? Mom, Helena says we're weak. She's wrong. You are the bravest girls I've ever met. And I want you to know something very important. No matter what she says, you are special, you are loved, and you don't deserve to be treated like this. Olivia started crying again. But what if no one believes us? What if our father never finds out? Victor knelt before them, careful not to touch them too much and to maintain his disguise. Your father knows. He knows. And he's going to do something. I promise you that. How do you know? Chiara asked. Just trust me. Things will change. Very soon. There was a noise downstairs. Helena had returned. Victor stood up quickly, grabbed the napkins from the sandwiches and put them in his pocket. Stay in the room, don't leave for anything. And remember, you have each other and no one can take that away from you. he said before leaving silently. He went downstairs and found Helena in the entrance hall taking off her coat. She saw him and frowned. "Marco, what were you doing upstairs?" Victor remained calm. "Mrs. Rose asked me to take water to the girls' room, Mrs. Helena. They were thirsty." Helena studied him for a long moment, her eyes suspicious. "Rose is becoming too permissive with these children. They are being punished. They shouldn't receive any kind of comfort. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mrs. Helena," replied Victor, lowering his eyes submissively. "And you, Marco, are not to get involved with the children. You're just the cook. Your job is in the kitchen. If I find out you're interfering with how I raise these girls, you'll be fired immediately. Is that clear?" "Perfectly clear, Ma'am." Helena went upstairs and Victor returned to the kitchen. His hands trembled with anger. He didn't know how much longer he could keep up the charade. Each day it became harder to watch his daughters suffer without being able to hug them, without being able to openly protect them. Rose entered the kitchen shortly after, exhausted from hours of cleaning. She sat heavily on a stool, her eyes closed. "She's planning something," Rose said quietly. "I know that look. She's getting impatient, frustrated. When she gets like this, things get worse." "What do you think she's going to do?" Victor asked. "The boarding school. She mentioned to me last week that she was researching strict boarding schools, places where children would learn real discipline. She wants to send the girls away." Victor felt his blood run cold. "When?" "I don't know, but soon. She's already selecting places. And when I mean when her husband is traveling again, she'll do it. She'll present it as a fait accompli, something necessary for the girls' well-being." "That's not going to happen," Victor said firmly. "I won't allow it." "But what can you do? You're just a cook, officially." Victor looked at Rose. "It's time to reveal who I really am, but first, I need something from you. I need you to go to my lawyer tomorrow. You're going to tell him everything you know, everything you saw. It will be officially recorded. It will be for your protection and the girls' protection." Rose nodded for the first time in days, showing a hopeful expression. "I'll do it, Mr. Victor. I'll do anything." That night, Victor barely slept. He knew events were unfolding rapidly, that he could no longer postpone the confrontation. He needed to act quickly, before Helena sent the girls away, before the psychological damage became irreparable. The next day was Sunday, and Helena had organized a small dinner party with some friends. It was the perfect opportunity. Victor watched Helena prepare for the evening, choosing an elegant dress, carefully applying her makeup, transforming herself into the perfect hostess she pretended to be in public. The guests arrived at 7. There were 3 couples, all from Helena's social circle. Victor served them discreetly, observing how Helena shone, how charming, witty, and lovely she was. She spoke of her daughters with feigned affection, mentioning how rewarding it was to be a stepmother, how she loved the girls as if they were her own daughters. It was all a lie, all theatre, and the guests believed every word. The dinner proceeded with elegance, laughter, and pleasant conversation about travel, investments, and the latest happenings in the social circle. Helena was the perfect hostess, ensuring that the glasses were always full, that the food was served at the right time, and that each guest felt special. Victor, like Marco, circulated through the room serving the dishes he had prepared, invisible as all employees tend to be to the wealthy. During dessert, one of the guests, a woman named Agnes, mentioned, "Helena, dear, how are your stepdaughters? I heard they are lovely twins." Helena's smile didn't waver for a second. "Oh, Chiara and Olivia are wonderful. A little shy, but they are sweet children. I'm doing my best to help them overcome the loss of their mother. It's not easy, but love and patience work miracles." Victor, standing near the sideboard with a serving dish in his hands, had to make a monumental effort to maintain a neutral expression. Love, patience. Helena didn't know the meaning of those words. Everything about her was a carefully constructed lie. "You are very generous, Helena," said Agnes. "Not all women would agree to marry a man who already has daughters. It's admirable." "Well, when you love someone, you accept everything that comes with them. Victor is a wonderful man, and the girls are a part of him. How could I not love them too?" Helena replied, placing her hand on her heart in a theatrical gesture. The guests sighed, touched by the apparent devotion. Victor felt nauseous. Helena was so convincing that even he, knowing the truth, almost believed her for a moment. She was a consummate actress, a first-class manipulator. Dinner continued for another hour. When the guests finally left, Helena closed the door and instantly her mask slipped. The smile vanished, replaced by an expression of weariness and irritation. "Rose," she shouted, "come clean up this mess now." The housekeeper appeared quickly and began collecting plates and glasses. Helena went upstairs without offering to help, as if it was something far beneath her. Victor helped Rose carry everything to the kitchen. As they washed the dishes side by side, Rose whispered, "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to the lawyer. I'm going to tell him everything." "Thank you, Rose. You are very brave," said Victor. "No, Mr. Victor, I should have done this a long time ago. I've been a coward, and the girls have paid the price." "You did what you could." Helena kept her under control through fear. "But now, together, we're going to put an end to it." That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Victor couldn't rest. Something was bothering him, a feeling that he was missing something important. He decided to take a walk around the house to check if everything was all right. She passed by the girls' room and heard low voices. She got closer and heard Chiara and Olivia talking. "Do you think she's really going to send us away?" Chiara asked, her voice trembling with fear. "I don't know, but if she tells us to, we'll run away." "We can go to Grandma's house, Dad's mom," Olivia replied. "But Grandma lives very far away, and Mom Helena will come looking for us. So we hide. We can live on the street if we need to. Anywhere is better than here." Victor felt tears burning his eyes. His 7-year-old daughters were planning to run away, preferring to live on the streets rather than stay in that house. How had things come to this? "What if Dad comes back and doesn't find us?" asked Chiara, always the most sentimental one. "We leave a note for him. We say that Mama Helena was mean to us and that we had to leave." "But will he believe her? He always seems so happy with her." There was a heavy silence. Then Olivia said, her voice heavy with sadness, "Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he likes her more than he likes us." "Don't say that," exclaimed Chiara. "Daddy loves us. I know he loves us. He just doesn't know what's happening." Victor stepped away from the door, unable to hear any more. He went to the bathroom and let the tears fall freely. His daughters thought he didn't care, that he preferred Helena to them. And why wouldn't they think that? He was always absent, always busy, always prioritizing work over family. But that would end now, no matter the cost. The following morning, Monday, the tension in the house was palpable. Helena woke up in a bad mood, complaining of a headache and saying that the previous night's dinner had been too tiring. She had breakfast alone, sending the girls off to school earlier than usual. Rose seized the opportunity and left, saying she needed to go to the market to buy some special ingredients Helena had requested. In reality, she was going to Victor's lawyer's office. Victor continued with his tasks. In the kitchen, preparing lunch, cleaning, organizing. Helena was in her office on the phone, and he managed to hear fragments of the conversation. "Yes, I'd like information about Colegio San Sebastián. I've heard it's very strict, perfect for children who need discipline. Yes, it's a full-time boarding school. They only come home during the holidays. Excellent. Could you send me the registration forms?" Victor felt a wave of rage so intense that he had to grip the edge of the sink. Helena was indeed planning to send her daughters to boarding school, and not just any boarding school, but one known for being extremely strict, almost military in its approach. This couldn't go on. Not another day. When Rose returned hours later, her eyes shone with determination. She discreetly nodded to Victor, indicating that the mission had been accomplished. Everything was recorded, documented, official. In the afternoon, when the girls returned from school, Helena was waiting for them in the living room. Her face was serious, almost solemn. "Girls, sit down. I need to talk to you about something important," she said. Chiara and Olivia sat on the sofa, side by side, their hands intertwined. Victor watched from the kitchen, every muscle tense. "I've been thinking a lot about your education, about your future, and I've come to the conclusion that this house, with all its freedom and comfort, isn't helping you develop your full potential," Helena began, her voice taking on a falsely maternal tone. That's why I've decided it would be better for you to attend a boarding school, a place where you can learn discipline, responsibility, where you can become the young women you need to be." The girls turned pale. Olivia squeezed Chiara's hand so hard that her fingers turned white. But what about Dad? Does he know about this?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "Your father gave me complete authority over educational matters. He trusts my judgment, and my judgment is that you need a more structured environment." "Please, no," Chiara whispered, tears beginning to stream down her face. "Please, Mommy Helena, we'll be better, we promise." "This isn't a punishment," Helena said, but there was barely disguised satisfaction in her eyes. "It's for your own good. The school is excellent. You'll like it." "When?" Olivia asked, her voice now cold and controlled. She had gone from fear to something resembling resigned acceptance. "In 2 weeks. I've already sent in the registration forms." Victor could no longer contain himself. He left the kitchen and walked into the living room, his posture changing, his gait transforming. He was no longer Marco, the submissive cook. He was Victor, the father, the husband, the head of the household. Helena had her back to him, focused on the girls. She didn't see him approaching, but Chiara did. Her eyes widened, recognition shining through despite the disguise. Olivia saw him too and was shocked. "That's not going to happen," Victor said, his voice clear and firm. Helena spun, on her heels, shocked. She looked at Marco, the cook, confused by his posture, his tone of voice. And then, slowly, recognition began to set in. "Victor?" she whispered, the color draining from her face. Victor took off his glasses and ran his hand through his hair. Without those elements, even with his shaved beard and dyed hair, it was impossible not to recognize him. "Yes, Helena. It's me." The silence that followed was absolute. The girls stared between their father and stepmother, unable to process what was happening. Rose had entered the room and stood in the doorway, witnessing the moment. Helena recovered from the initial shock and immediately went on the offensive, her face transformed into a mask of indignation. "What do you think you're doing? You disguised yourself? You entered your own house as a servant? That's crazy! You're insane!" "No, Helena, for the first time in a long time I'm seeing things clearly," Victor replied, keeping his voice calm but firm. "You spied on me. You invaded our privacy. This is violation. This is obsession. This is sick," Helena shouted, her voice rising an octave. "I needed to see the truth, and I did. I saw how you treat my daughters when you think no one is looking. I saw the cruelty, the manipulation, the psychological abuse you inflict on 2 innocent children. Abuse? I take care of them. I educate them. You have no idea what it's like to raise these difficult, stubborn girls. You're not here, you're always traveling, always working. I'm the one who deals with everything." "Dealing with everything?" Victor's voice hardened. "You call dealing with everything humiliating them, punishing them for insignificant mistakes, depriving them of food, constantly threatening them. That's discipline, something you clearly don't know how to practice." The girls were huddled together on the sofa, watching the argument with wide eyes. Victor looked at them and his heart broke at the fear and confusion on their faces. "Girls," he said gently, "can you go to your room? I need to talk to Helena alone." They hesitated, but Olivia pulled Chiara away and the two ran to the room. Rose followed them, wanting to offer comfort. Alone in the room, Victor and Helena stared at each other. Her mask had completely fallen. The elegant and well-mannered wife was gone. There was only anger, despair, and something darker that Victor couldn't quite name. "Do you think you can just discard me like that?" Helena said, her voice dangerously low. "Do you think you can expose me, humiliate me, and there will be no consequences? The only consequences that matter now are for you, Helena, and you will answer for everything you've done. Respond? For taking care of children who aren't mine? For trying to turn them into decent people?" She laughed, but it was a humorless, almost hysterical laugh. "No one will believe you, Victor. No one. They are your daughters. You are the suspect. I am the devoted stepmother who sacrificed her freedom to raise another woman's daughters. Rose will testify, and I documented everything I've seen in the last few days." Helena turned pale, but quickly regained her composure. Rose, a housekeeper who could be fired at any moment. Who will believe her testimony against mine? A court will go, because I'm going to sue you for custody of the girls, and I'm going to make sure you never come near them again. That's when Helena completely exploded. She started screaming, cursing, breaking things. She threw a vase against the wall, knocked over the coffee table, and tore up cushions. It was an uncontrolled primal rage. Victor watched Helena's outburst with a mixture of sadness and relief. There was the real Helena, the woman his daughters knew, finally revealed without masks. He took out his cell phone and started filming. "What do you think you're doing?" Helena shouted, realizing what was happening. "Documenting. Just like I've been documenting everything over the last few days," Victor replied calmly. Helena stopped abruptly, the reality of the situation finally penetrating her anger. Her eyes filled with tears, but Victor knew they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, of anger at having been found out. "You ruined me," she said, her voice breaking. "Ruined everything." "No, Helena, you did this on your own. I only brought to light what you already were." In the following days, Victor's life turned into a race against time. His lawyer filed for divorce and full custody of the girls, presenting Rose's testimony, the recordings Victor had made, and even managed to locate the piano teacher and the English teacher, who confirmed Helena's behavior. Helena tried to fight, hired expensive lawyers, her family mobilized contacts, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the judge heard the girl's own testimony, in a private and sensitive session, the decision was swift. Helena was forced to leave the house immediately and was prohibited from contacting the children. The night Helena finally left, Victor gathered his daughters in the living room. They were scared, confused, processing everything that had happened. "Girls," Victor said, kneeling before them, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for not realizing it sooner, for not being here when you needed me. I failed you in every possible way." Chiara and Olivia looked at him with their big, expressive eyes. Then, without a word, they both threw themselves into his arms, crying. Victor hugged them tightly, letting his own tears fall freely. "You're back, Dad," Olivia whispered. "You saved us. And I'm never leaving again. I'll never again put work above you. I'll never again fail to see you when you need me," Victor promised. In the months that followed, the house was transformed. Victor hired a child psychologist to help the girls process the trauma. Rose remained with them, now as an integral part of the family, her mother receiving the best medical treatment Victor's money could buy. The changes were gradual but profound. Chiara started drawing again, but now her drawings showed vibrant colors, smiling families and houses full of light. Olivia regained her natural joy, her laughter echoing through the house once more. Victor drastically reduced his travel, worked from home whenever possible, and when he needed to go out, never for more than a day. They ate dinner together every night, talked, laughed, sometimes cried, remembering the difficult times. Victor learned to comb hair, to help with homework, to listen to stories about the day at school. He learned to be the present father he should have always been. 3 months after the separation, on a Friday night, the three of them were on the sofa watching a movie. Chiara was snuggled against Victor, Olivia with her head in his lap. It was a simple, everyday moment, but for Victor, it meant everything. "Dad," Chiara said softly. "Yes, my dear?" "Are you happy now?" Victor looked at his daughters, saw Rose in the kitchen making popcorn, heard the laughter coming from the television, and felt the peace that had finally returned to that house. "Yes, my princess. I am happier than I have ever been, because I have you. And you have me, and that's all that really matters." The girls smiled, and in that smile Victor saw healing happening. It wouldn't be quick, it wouldn't be easy, but they would get there. Together, like a real family, they would overcome everything. And for the first time in years, Victor felt he was exactly where he should be, at home, with his daughters, living not a perfect life, but a real life. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Victor, Chiara, Olivia and Rose has touched your hearts. This narrative about courage, recovery, and true family love reminds us of the importance of being present in the lives of those we love and never ignoring the signs when something is wrong. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more moving narratives that explore the complexities of human relationships. Like the video and share in the comments if you've ever been in situations where you had to choose between comfortable truth and difficult reality. Every week we bring you stories that make us reflect on family, love, overcoming challenges, and the strength of the human spirit. Don't miss our upcoming content, and remember, sometimes the most extraordinary stories are born from the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Until the next story.